Episode 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first Predictorcast from the team here at StrictlyDB.com. My name is Matt, I am your host, and I am delighted to be joined by my fellow Strictly Predictor pundits and dance data divas. It's Liv and James. Hello, Liv.
Hi.
Hello, James.
Hi, everyone.
Now, you're probably wondering what a Predictorcast is, and let's be honest, you're not alone because we're sort of working it out ourselves too. So let me explain how we got into this predicament. In the podcast last week, we said that we were planning to record shows every 3 weeks or so, and probably around themed shows like Halloween and Blackpool. Problem is, we then had the first competitive dancing show of Strictly this series and the launch of our new game, and it was all a bit exciting really, so we decided we needed an excuse to meet up and talk about it. Hence the Predictorcast was born, and here we are. Now, unlike our normal podcasts where we take deep dives into lots of Strictly topics, the Predictorcast is designed to be briefer and focused on our game. So we're only going to talk about 3 things in this cast. Firstly, our thoughts and feelings about last Saturday's Strictly show, because that sets the context for the game. Secondly, the Strictly Predictor game and how we all did. And thirdly, this Saturday's Strictly show and our predictions plans for the week. Sound good? We think so. So let's go. Oh, but before we get into it, can I just remind you, if you do like this content, please like and share it, guys. It really helps the podcast. It helps other Strictly fans find us. So if you like it, give it a like and share. Thank you very much. That's my Apple Watch talking to me. Tally, Strictly, ho! Let's get on with the show. That's not nice. Did you hear that?
Last week's show.
So, to set the context for talking about the game, let's talk about last Saturday's show, the first competitive dancing show of 2025. Remember, we are keeping it high level and summary, guys. We're not going into deep dives. So let's kick off. James, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the show. First off, I think we should mention, because we had breaking news, didn't we, when we did the recording last week, that we just heard about Danny having to pull out. And I think it was amazing that the show was able to bring in a replacement at such short notice. And given the circumstances, I thought Amber did brilliantly for week 1. So I'm really interested to see how her Strictly journey pans out. You know, I'm thinking sort of her and Lewis is going to be quite the battle from week to week. Apart from that, I thought there was more realistic scoring than we've seen in previous series openers, which I'm generally appreciative of, although it's a shame that the judges didn't sort of pass on that directive to me before I submitted my score predictions. We'll get into that shortly. In fact, I looked over the course of the show and there was 19 scores of 4 or lower from a judge, which actually is more than in any other episode of Strictly ever. So that's quite something. Probably not something they want to boast about, but I thought it was interesting. And one final point, I did a blog a couple of weeks ago where I looked at the first scores that all the previous contestants had received and how well or not they then did throughout the show. And the data shows that the magic number, the best score to get in week 1 is 27, because there's been 7 previous Strictly champions have started with that score. So it was good to see that we had 2 contestants this year got that score, both Amber and Jimmy. So we'll see if it's a lucky number for them.
Brilliant. Thank you, James. Yeah, so 27 is actually the answer to life, the universe, and everything Strictly. That's what we, it'd be interesting to see how they do. And I do agree about Amber. I mean, it's probably unfair to say Battle of the Ringers, isn't it? But it's good that there's someone else with some considerable, if not ballroom, but considerable dance and performance experience in the mix. How about you, Liv? What did you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the show too, like James. I'm really interested that he used the word realistic scoring because it probably is more realistic. I just felt it was lower, and I felt for some people it seemed a little bit harshly low. But again, we'll get into that in a little bit. I thought it felt like there was quite a lot of nerves skipping around there in the studio, and I think that came out in some of the dances, which might be why the scores were a bit lower. But I also thought there were some celebrities that seemed to cope really well with the nerves. So people like Jimmy and George, who I thought might struggle with that kind of performance side of things in a live studio. Even Karen Carney, I thought she might struggle with that a bit, but they were amazing, weren't they? So they seemed to be able to quell the nerves a bit, which I think helps in their performances. So that was good. James has already said about the low scoring, and I've reiterated it. It was the first time we've ever seen Anton get his 3 paddle out, which he gave to Ross and Javita's Cha Cha Cha, which is always a bit of a surprise. I've always felt that Anton, because he's been on both sides of the fence, he's always been a little bit more generous than the other judges. But I think you can kind of see why, because he knows what it's like to be on the receiving end of some really harsh scores. I mean, we all know how he got on when he danced with people like Anne Widdecombe. So, I think that's always been a reason that he's been a bit more generous. So to see him getting his 3 paddle out was a bit of it was interesting. And there were loads of things to be really positive about. I think I said in last week's podcast, the one we did before, I think I said, I think there's going to be a really good jive in week 1. Well, actually, we were blessed, weren't we? Because there were 2 really good jives. They were both excellent jives. And I love a jive when it's danced well. It's probably one of my favourite dances. I really like it. Of the Latins, it's probably my favourite. Karen just smashed it. It was a real gobsmacker of a dance. She came out at the end, and it was just the energy, her performance, the way she just looked so natural. She's comes from a sports background, so she's not got that sort of performing element that people like Lewis and Amber, obviously they've got that experience, haven't they, being actors and dancers and things like that. So she really smashed it, and it to me, that's what Strictly is all about, is when somebody comes out and really surprises you. It's like the beauty of the show. So it was nice to see that on the opening night. I can remember maybe 3 times previously when there's been a real kind of wow moment in the first show. The first one I remember is in series 3 when Zoe Ball came out, danced a waltz, scored 35, which I believe is still the highest ever week 1 score. She danced with Ian, and that was pretty amazing. I remember being like a bit blown away by that. Then obviously Abby and Ali Ash, when they came out in series 11, it was Ali Ash's first series, and they danced their waltz and scored 32. That was a bit of a wow moment. And then the third one, which is everyone's wow moment, was when Kelvin Fletcher stood in and came out with OT in series 17 and danced to Samba and scored 32. So again, brilliant dances, wow moments in week 1. They do happen. And it's interesting, isn't it, that 2 of those 3 one went on to win. So that was Kelvin and obviously Abby. So interesting. Karen's definitely one to watch as far as I'm concerned. Interesting. Just one more thing on it. I looked at the YouTube views just before we came on to the podcast for the week 1 routines. I always like to have a little look at that and see what's doing well. So at the moment, Karen and Carlos, their jive's got 256,000 views. In second place. Any guesses for second place?
George,
yeah, George and Alexis, another fantastic dance. I thought he did really well. I thought that was a lovely dance, actually, a lovely first dance. 156,000 plays. And what about third place? Who do we think's in third place? This was the one that surprised me.
someone bad, not Thomas, surely.
No, it was Stefan and Diane.
Oh,
Okay.
They're on 99K.
Was it half of Australia sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think they've just got a massive fan base, haven't they? So that's going to be interesting to watch.
it's a die factor, isn't it? Thanks, Liv. Yeah, the scores were fascinating, and I do wonder if Anton's going to lose his Mr. Nice Guy, the counterweight to Craig at the other end of the desk. Because it's usually, isn't it, 6-6? I liked it, 7, and
Yeah.
you didn't see any of that. And what I thought was interesting was in the last show, James mentioned, didn't he? He sort of said, "Oh, well, we were talking about how many scores above 30 we'd see." And I remember you saying, James, well, it depends if the editors have had a word about toning it down. Just one quick question on that. The lower scores, how do you think the fandom has reacted to that? Do you think they think it's a good thing or too harsh?
I think it depends on how your favourite did. Um, one of my predictions last week was that Balvinder was a potential winner, and I was slightly disappointed with her performance, but I think she was given a very harsh score from the judges.
Yeah, I agree, James. She got 1 point higher than Thomas, didn't she? Thomas's Pasadobly got 16, and Balvinder's Samba got 17, and there was not a 1 point difference for me between those two dances.
I thought it was marked harshly as well.
Sorry, Matt, who?
Harry. I thought Harry did really well, and then got good comments, and then I was quite surprised at the score.
Yeah, that will come up again a bit later.
The press up sort of. Yeah, I don't know. I think they hoped it was going to be a wow moment. I think it was on so early in the show, wasn't it? So it's one of those things when you got 15 dances. By the time you get to like number 12, 13, 14, you kind of forget sort of like those ones that were in the first sort of 3 or 4 of the show.
Yeah,
that's going to be even more important in week 2, obviously, when you get the vote happening.
Definitely. Brilliant. Okay. Well, thank you guys for a really good brief recap. I should say as well that both the guys have published blogs this week about week 1. Liv highlighting some facts that we've talked about, but there's some more details in there if you want to have a read of that. And James doing one about the new Strictly Judge rule, which we won't get into here, but have a read of James's blog. Makes for some interesting reading. Cool. Okay. Well, there you go, guys. So, right, before we do move on, though, I was going to say, if you do want more thorough episode and routine reviews, there are other really, really good pods out there. And we thought we might just shout out some of our favourites. First of all, I'm going to give a shout out to the superb Kate Talks Strictly, my personal favorite podcast. She gives really, really good, insightful reviews and did a really good review in her last pod of week 1. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, do check it out. Word of warning, Kate Talks Strictly. Do not listen to Kate's podcast in the car in the morning on the way to work, because you will have the theme tune, which is an absolute banger. You will have the theme tune towing around your head all day, and particularly resonating in boring meetings. So yeah, one warning on the rather infectious theme tune. Also, we want to give shout outs to Strictly on the Sofa, the Keep Dancing podcast, and if you don't mind a bit of sweary Mary swearing, WTF Strictly, which always makes me laugh. All available on Spotify, all very enjoyable, all interesting and all great fun. So do check them out. But now it's time to talk game.
Game Week Review.
So the first week has been played. Wow, exciting. So Liv, how did it go? Tell us how it went.
Oh yeah, thanks, Matt. It was brilliant. Thank you so much to the 53 people who played, and we found it really fun, and we hope that you did too. And actually, I just want to mention before we get going that the week 2 dances are now in the game, and it's open for predictions. So, and it's not too late to join the game. I know you might think, oh, we've missed week 1 and we won't be able to catch up, but we're kind of going to keep some things, keep adding some things so that it stays interesting. So we're going to have a star predictor every week. So the person who gets the top score on the leaderboard every week will get a shout out, maybe on the blog or on a pod if we're doing a pod. So that's a reason to play, maybe join a bit later. And we'll also wrap that up into a monthly star predictor as well, looking at scores over the month and who kind of got the best score in a month. So hopefully that gives people who maybe missed the first week or so a bit of an incentive to join, but it's definitely not too late. There's still lots of time to shine. So wanted to get that message across. Okay, do we want some stats on the game week?
Yeah.
More stats. You can never add too many numbers. Okay, so we had 53 players who made 106 predictions, because obviously you predict for 2 couples each. 37 jokers were played. 37. 27 successfully. Well done if you played a successful joker. 10 unsuccessfully. But don't worry if you played one unsuccessfully, because there's still 10 left, 10 jokers left in the game that you can choose for any other game week. And don't forget that there's an extra one that you can play in the final. The final is the only week where 2 jokers apply, because there's one that is specifically for the final. So there's still lots of jokers to use, and don't worry if you didn't have luck with your first one. So we had 10 players who predicted 1 perfect score. So well done to them. Brilliant. That was good. Really well done if that was you. We had 1 player who not only predicted 2 perfect scores, but who also played a joker successfully, so scored the absolute maximum possible number of points in a game week, which was 65. So the star predictions were made on Lewis and Katya to score 28, which they did, and Thomas and Amy to score 16, which they did. So a great big round of applause goes out to our first star predictor of the week, and that is Kira, who is top of the leaderboard. So well done, Kira.
Go, Kira! Go, Kira!
What a brilliant start to the game. Absolutely. Interestingly, that was the most frequent combination that people predicted on. So the most people predicted on those 2 together, Lewis and Katya, and Thomas and Amy. Lewis and Katya's score was the one that was predicted the most. 29 players predicted their score. So that's a lot of people picking them. They were by far the most popular pairing, which I think is probably related to the fact that we know Lewis is a bit of a ringer, and we know he's got a dancing background. So I think people were confident that he was going to score well. I think some people thought he was going to score really well, and he perhaps didn't score as well as they thought. But I think that's why they were the most predicted couple this week, probably. Don't forget, you won't be able to choose them this week. In fact, I think the interface on the game manages that for you, because I don't think they'll be in your list when you log in. The most accurately predicted pairing was, interestingly, Thomas and Amy, because 6 people correctly predicted that they would score 16. So that was interesting too. I think people knew that Thomas wasn't going to do brilliantly in the first dance. Interesting as well is that every celebrity pairing received at least 1 prediction. So that was good as well. It wasn't like, there was a spread across the celebrities, but it did seem that the players were staying away from sort of the new pro pairings, which again, I think makes sense. So there weren't very many predictions on Balvinda and Julian, and there weren't very many predictions on George and Alexis. And I think that's probably because you're kind of waiting to see what those pros are like and what they bring. So I wasn't too surprised that they were perhaps slightly lower than some of the others. And in terms of results, well, James and I are kind of lamenting the fact that we're somewhere down near the bottom of the leaderboard, aren't we, James? And slightly annoyed that Matt is out of our little Strictly DB gang. Matt is top of our group at the moment on the leaderboard, so that's interesting. He's not, it's a marathon, not a sprint, though, Matt. You've got to remember that. And if fantasy football's anything to go by, Matt likes to tinker a lot, so that may catch you out later on in the series. But yeah, no. So there were 3 pairings that really caught a lot of people out in terms of their predictions. I think it's obvious that one of the main ones was someone I chose, someone James chose, which was Ross and Jovita, because I think we knew they weren't going to do brilliantly, but we did not see that 10 coming. I certainly didn't see that 10 coming. So that was a bit of a shock. I remember
Ross getting a 10 is quite a shock.
Yeah.
But 10 combined, not individual 10.
Yeah, absolutely. So that caught a few of us out. I've got to give a little bit of a shout out to Steve there, who's not here tonight, but he did predict on them as well. And actually, he predicted them the closest. He predicted that they would score 13, which was together with another player, Hawker's 44. Well done to that player. They both predicted that Ross and Jovita would get 13, which was the closest score to what they actually got. That was the lowest score that was predicted for them. So well done to Steve. Don't let it go to your head.
We all know how he did that, because he explained very carefully his strategy last week, which absolutely none of us understood and made no sense to anyone. So, but well done anyway, Steve.
It didn't do him any harm, that strategy, did it? He's certainly doing better than me and James. The other 2, we've already talked about both of them. The other 2 that caught quite a few of us out, although I didn't predict on these 2, but that was Harry and Karen and Balvinda and Julian. So people that predicted on those 2 tended to score them a little bit higher in their predictions, completely understandably, I think. If I had chosen either of those, I would not have been predicting them as score in the teens. I would have been in the low mid-20s for those 2, which is what people did. And therefore, obviously, when Balvinda scored 17, That's quite a big difference, isn't it? So that affected some people's scores. So it was really interesting. And because, like we said, we didn't know that the judges have obviously been told to maybe be a little bit more circumspect with their paddles this year. It certainly seemed to affect some of us in the game, but we know now and we can adjust our predictions accordingly. So lots more fun to look forward to, hopefully.
Excellent. Thank you, Liv. James, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, not happy with my performance, but it's the Strictly journey, isn't it? So I'm hoping to start off slow and we'll eventually be victorious. So we'll see how that pans out.
James, I think last year you didn't have a great first week when we played our other game, and I think you ended up smashing us.
Well, yeah, I remember I picked Shane to come top.
Yeah.
Week one is kind of like a feeling out process. I didn't play my Joker, so that's one bonus, I guess. I predicted Lewis to come top. I thought a Jive would come top in the 30s, but I just picked the wrong contestant. But yeah, where I really slipped up was with Ross.
Yeah, same with me. Yeah.
I'd looked back over the previous 4 years since Anton had been a judge, and there'd only been 2 people who'd scored less than 16 in those 4 years in week one. So that's why I went as high as 18 for Ross, because I thought he was going to actually perform slightly better than people were expecting. So 8 points off on that one. But, we live and learn.
Yeah.
Live and learn. James, don't beat yourself up. You're still the bookie's favourite. And, to give you some of your own advice back to you, remember, it's a Sambathon, not a Samba. There's more fun to come. Well done, guys. Okay, well, we've looked behind us, so let's look ahead to the game and the episode this week.
The week ahead.
So we're going to look ahead to week 2. But before we do, guys, let me remind you of a quick rule with the game, which is you are playing for week 2 and week 2 alone. So if you are thinking about using a Joker for top of leaderboard or bottom of leaderboard, that's for week 2. That's not the combined leaderboard. That's just the week 2 leaderboard, because we're treating each week separately. Okay, so here is where we may or may not divulge our plans for the forthcoming game week. I, for one, am planning to remain entirely poker-faced. However, I'm a complete oversharer, so I'll give away everything when it's my turn. But before we talk to the guys, let me remind you of the dances we have this week. So we have Dancing the Cha-Cha-Cha, Stefan and Diane, Jimmy and Lauren, Dancing the Jive, to a song called Tango, Lavoie and Aliash, Dancing the Paso Doble, George and Alexis, Dancing the Salsa, Thomas and Amy, Dancing the Samba, Alex and Johannes and Amber and Nikita, Dancing the Charleston, Balvinda and Julian, Dancing the Foxtrot, Vicky and Kai, Dancing the Quickstep, Harry and Karen, Dancing the Tango, not to a song called Tango, Karen and Carlos, Dancing the Viennese Waltz, Lewis and Katia, Chris and Nadia, Dancing the Waltz, Ross and Javita, Ellie and Vito. Whew, I'm worn out. So, to give me a break, let's come to you, James. What are you thinking about week 2?
Okay, so for week 2, I think it's quite tricky, actually, sort of like picking who's going to be top. I mean, I think Amber's going to be near the top most weeks, but she's got the Samba this week, so I'm probably try and avoid that. Obviously, Karen did brilliantly last week, but I was looking back through the records to see how people who topped the leaderboard in week 1 went on to do in week 2. And over the last 13 years, the only person who topped the leaderboard twice in those 2 weeks was Ashley Roberts, one of the best dancers of all time. So I think the chances of Karen finishing top again are pretty slim. So I'd probably say Lewis is the safest pick. Viennese Waltz, shouldn't be many things going wrong with that dance, for the judges to pick on.
Can I just say, it's also got a great track, that one. Sorry to interrupt you, James. Teddy Swims, the Teddy Swims Lose Control track is really, really good. That'll be a good dance, I think.
the other one, which is sort of like maybe an outsider pick for top, again, I'm going to go back to Balvinda. I still think there's something there, and with the Charleston, we see a number of great Charlestons. We do see some. It's also quite a dangerous dance in terms of elimination. So I think it's going to be one of those. I wouldn't be surprised to see a top. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe in the dance off. So, but I wish her well. After last week's scoring, I think she deserves much better this week. Lowest score. Oh, go on, Liv.
Sorry, James, I didn't interrupt, but another great track for that one, because she's dancing to Meghan Trainor being like this, and that is a really good track. So hopefully that'll help as well. Fingers crossed.
Lowest score, one word, bonkers. If you know, you know. And in terms of the elimination, I mean, if you look at the bookies odds, Ross is like really strong favourite to go this week. Obviously he's propping up the leaderboard after week 1. So when I saw the dance styles for this week, with him dancing the waltz, it sort of like triggered something in my Strictly brain. And I'll put this to you two, and plus everyone who's watching. When was the last time that a male celebrity was eliminated dancing the waltz in a single dance week? Have a guess.
Is it one of these ones where it's never?
Not quite. But the last person was an actor called Phil Daniels.
Oh yeah, that's a long time ago. Flavia.
He was eliminated in week 1 of Series 6.
Oh, week 1. I knew it was early.
Yeah, week 1 of Series 6. So it's 17 years since any man has been eliminated on the waltz. So Ross has got that going in his favour.
Yeah, definitely. He's got a great track. I keep banging on about the music. I'm really sorry, but the music this week, I think it's really good. I don't think there's a bad track in there, to be honest. But yeah, he's got a Proclaimer, Sunshine on Leaf, a waltz to that. I think that will be. His score, I'm sure, will go up. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be my advice to anyone sort of like predicting Ross to go this week, is just to be careful, given that he's been given the waltz. As for the game, myself, as I said, I didn't play a Joker last week. I would advise people, to either if you haven't played it already, play your Craig 4 or less this week or next week, because by the time you get to week 4, the 4s are going to be drying up a little bit for Craig. And I looked at, so I'm trying to think who could I use that Joker on. So obviously the people who got the lowest scores last week were Ross and Thomas. They both received a 2 from Craig. So I looked back over the last 10 years to see when Craig gave someone a 2, what were their scores the following week. So there have been 22 occasions that Craig gave a 2 over the last 10 years.
2 twos.
On 6 of those occasions, the person got eliminated in that week, so they didn't come back the next week. But of the other 16 occasions, there were only 3 people who their score from Craig was higher than 4. So 13 out of 16 times, they got another low score the following week. The 3 who sort of exceeded expectations, it was Katie Piper. She got a 5 from Craig in Movie Week. It was a La La Land themed foxtrot. You had Tony Adams. He scored a 5 in week 4 for an American Smooth. And, the best week-on-week improvement was Sean Walsh. Do you remember when he got that magnificent 7 for that Matrix themed passo?
That was a good passo.
So yeah, it's very unlikely that either Thomas or Ross are going to get higher than 4 from Craig this week. So that's probably one of those 2 is who you want to play that Joker for. But yeah, I think I won't give any more secrets away. I've got some ground to catch up.
James, you've given loads away.
Great stuff. Thank you, James. Okay, cool. Right, Liv, let's come to you. How are you thinking for this week?
Yeah, mine's all just what I think, what I feel. I haven't done any of looking at the data like James. I looked at the data for the game, I suppose, so it's a bit different. So I think it's a really good lineup of dancers this week. and I think the music is amazing. I've got my playlist and I'm listening to them all, and there's some really good tracks. So I'm really looking forward to it. There are 4 dances that I'm really looking forward to seeing, which is obviously Karen and Carlos's tango to Dua Lipa's song Training Season. I think that will be hopefully a good dance, but I don't think it will top. I think it'll be good. Lewis and Katya, we've already talked about them. Their Viennese waltz. She did a lovely Viennese waltz, that series when she won with Joe McFadden. They did a brilliant Viennese waltz, that series, and I think she could do a really good dance there. I love that track, so I'm looking forward to that dance. That's what I'm looking forward to. And the last 2 are George and Alexis with the Paso Doble, but really looking forward to seeing that. I love a Paso Doble, but a bit nervous because Paso Dobles early on for male celebrities can be a bit dodgy. So I'm willing George on to do well. I loved his dance last week. It was sort of simple and very effective. I thought they're American Smooth, but I'm not going to go anywhere near George for my predicting. I don't think, because that could go a lot of different ways, that dance. Sorry, James.
Just on the track, I noticed that I believe AJ and Kai danced that track, and that was one of her lowest scores of the series, wasn't it?
And it was a few weeks in as well. It wasn't a particularly early dance, I don't think. So exactly, I did look at that and think the track hasn't got great history. It's a good track actually, and that was not a strong dance for them, was it? And they had a really good like dance CV with some really high scores, but that was not one of their best. So yeah, again, another reason to perhaps avoid that dance. I'm still looking forward to seeing it, because I love the way they danced on Saturday night, so I'm looking forward to seeing it. But no, I'm not going to predict anywhere. I'm not going to go any of them for predictions. Who I am considering is Kai and Vicky for their foxtrot, because I'm a ballroom girl at heart. They've got a great song, the Sam Fender song, "Rain Me In," Olivia Dean, Sam Fender, which is a really good track. I love that song, and it could be really nice. Interestingly, Kai's danced 2 foxtrots in week 2 before. So he's danced 2 foxtrots in week 2 before, and both times he has scored 31. Well, I'm thinking that, he could make it a hat trick. I don't know if it'd be 31, but I think Kai seems quite good at the foxtrot. They've got a good track. I think Vicky looked quite good last week. I know she didn't score particularly highly. She was sort of low 20s, wasn't she? But I think ballroom is going to be more her thing. So I'm thinking that their score will go up, and I'm looking forward to seeing that dance. So that's the one I'm sort of interested in. But that's about all I've got to say, really.
Brilliant. Thanks, Liv. Yeah. And do you think George's Paso Doble will be better than the Boscia Doble we saw last week? Had to get it in. Enjoyed that.
Someone was not smiling on Thomas with that, giving him a salsa to Dizzy Rascal Bonkers. Yeah. Some people think I'm bonkers. It's going to be one to watch, isn't it? Not for the right reasons. It reminds me a bit of Pete getting his George in the Jungle samba last year. But Pete pulled it off, didn't he? So we'll see.
Just on that, what do you think about? I mean, if Thomas does go this week, and there's a chance that it will happen, that would mean that he doesn't get the chance to dance a ballroom style.
Yeah.
I also think, really in the first 2 weeks of the show, you should have, one Latin or one ballroom. Yeah. The same would be true for Balvindo. Obviously, got Samba and Charleston in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's a really good point, James. I'm not a massive fan of giving the specialist dances really early on. So I think obviously American Smooths never used to be danced in the first week, and now an American Smooth is sort of always in the first week. And it's true that things like salsas, I would prefer to. I mean, the salsa's very technical dance. There's a lot of lifts in it. It's a tall order, I think. And it just seems unfortunate that of the 15 celebrities, I feel a bit sorry for Thomas that he's got that dance in week 2 to that track. I mean, I'm sure he'll make the best of it, and I'm sure it will inject a lot of humour, and we'll all remember it. But yeah, I would prefer to see week like they used to do in the early series. You know, I mean, they didn't have so many specialist dances then anyway. Things like Charleston came and American Smooth came in like later series. But yeah, it's nice to see more of the traditional, you know, and I quite like to see more than one routine danced in a week, you know. So seeing, like last week we saw 4 cha-cha-chas, didn't we? Or was it 4? And I think that's sometimes quite good as well, because you can compare across then, can't you?
Yeah, we didn't I don't think we saw any tangos last week, and we've only got one this week, which, you know, it's a shame.
Tango's a tricky dance, actually. When you look at the statistics, it's you know, it hasn't got loads of perfect scores on Strictly. I think there's 3, maybe, I could be wrong. And you know, and its average score I think is a bit lower than you might expect. So I think that's why I'll probably avoid Karen and Carlos this week. I did have a look at Carlos's tango statistics. When you're looking at Carlos, it's rumba the one you want, isn't it? If he's got a rumba, then you're going to be predicting Carlos to be and Karen to be high, but they've got a tango, so yeah, I'm staying away from them, I think.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. So just for me to go, well, I would look at Thomas, but I can't because I picked him in the first week. So I think I'm probably going to pick 2 people who I think are going to score lower, because I think that feels easier than at the moment, particularly this week, predicting around those scoring higher. So I'm going to be looking at the lower end of the leaderboard, and being that I can't pick Thomas, you can probably work out where I will be fishing in the pond, not swimming, as I kept saying last week. Swimming in the pond, fishing in the pond around the lower parts of the leaderboard. Fantastic. Okay, guys. Well, I hope you found that helpful, and it's helped you to think about your predictions and where you may be placing them this week. But I think it's time to wrap up.
Wrapping up.
So, major predictions yet? If not, what you waiting for? The dances are out and the game is afoot. And it's open to new players as well. Don't forget that, guys. If you haven't played yet, jump on in. There's loads of time left to play, and everybody is welcome in the house of Strictly. We are all inclusive. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, again, please do give it a like and a share. It does help get this madness out to other Strictly fans who might also like it. And it's a mad world after all, so every like and share helps. But that's it for now, folks. So bye-bye. And don't forget to keep predicting. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye for now.